Well, for more on this, we're now joined by mining analyst Peter Major. Peter, always good to talk to you. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Help us understand, how can 6,100 mines be dumped?
Look, it's a huge number, but you've got to remember this country's been mining since 1860. And it grew its mining industry so well for the next 150 years that these mines add up, these shafts add up. And South Africa had the world's largest mines. They had mines that could put 30,000 men underground safely and economically every day and bring them up. So huge mines, Fall Reefs, Western Deep Levels, Harmony Gold Mine. If you look at the real big ones, they had 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 shafts, 12, 14 shafts. So over a century plus, we built the world's largest mines. We were the #1 mining country by far. We were very attractive for foreign investment. So we were exploiting virtually every mineral we had that was economic. And we probably had more economic minerals than Russia and America put together. And we were doing good at exploiting them, creating jobs, generating wealth and infrastructure for the country. But the deficiency of that previous mining act was on rehabilitation, because while the mines were responsible for a heck of a lot, government was responsible for the final closure of them. And people didn't foresee that these mines would close because the veins go on forever. The various ore bodies just seem to go on forever. And they were just growing all the time. We grew employment for 100 years solid to where we had 850,000 men working on our mines in the late 80s. Then with the change in the Minerals Act, change in the government, a 20-year period of falling metal prices, all those stars, those planets lining up together drove the mining companies into ruin. They drove a lot of them out of the country. It virtually blocked new foreign investment. It made us very unattractive. We're one of the most unattractive investment destinations there are in the whole planet. And before you know it, you've got 6,000 abandoned mines, and the ownership of them is vested with the state. And yeah, we don't have 7 giant mining houses and 110 mining companies under those mining houses that can now be called to account. You know, we have a few, and government, it didn't fulfill its role either. It was like the fall of the Iron Curtain. It was just too many changes all at once without anticipating and preparing for the consequences. And that's what we've got now. Thousands of ownerless mines, thousands of illegal miners, and a weak military, a weak police, a weak social structure, super high unemployment, infrastructure falling apart. Now it's a problem for the whole country, not just for the mines department.
All right, so what you're saying is, because of the legislation, mining houses could literally say, okay, we've had enough, pack our bags and just leave, and just walk away and leave government to clean up the mess.
Bluntly, that is fairly correct. It's not legally correct, 90 or 100%, but mining companies could close divisions of their mine, and that was the government's responsibility. Mining companies could sell divisions of their mine or sell the whole mine to another company. And this is a worry, that when a large capitalized, experienced mining company sells its mine to a consortium of entrepreneurs and new people who've never been in mining, or some of them may have been in mining, but they don't have the capital, the resources, the balance sheet. They don't have the foreign backing. So you sell a mine to someone that can't handle it, and then you put increased burden of increased regulations, policies, and you've tied the person's hands so they can't just hire who they want. They can't fire who they want. They can't just bring in who they want to be an equity partner. They have to bring in certain nominated people to do the work. 70% of the money they spend goes to certain denominated, demarcated people. It's a combination, but regulations, policies are always the big driver. They're always going to point where the investment goes, where the investment runs, who is going to do what. So that is the starting point.
So what does rehabilitation actually mean? Once we've spent 49 billion rand, what does it look like?
Great question. We always hear about spending these large amounts of money. Who decides how much money gets spent on which abandoned mine? And not just how much money, but what kind of work is done? Because there's rehabilitation and there's rehabilitation. You can see the professionals doing it. You can see the amateurs do it. You can see people who want to take out as much money and put in their pocket doing it. And you want to see people who do it correctly, and you can learn so much from them. And I'm living in the second greatest rehabilitation site in North America, certainly in the United States. And it's the Coeur d'Alenes in northern Idaho. And we had huge mining destruction here from 1880 until 1980. We had the second largest Superfund site in the country, over $1 billion. That's 17 billion rand for this one valley that probably mined as much as Western Deep Levels did on its own. And you can see how the money is spent. And it's so easy to misspend money. And yet it's so easy to get huge bang for buck. When genuine people who know what they're doing spend money in rehabilitation, they can make the area almost as good as it was before, that the average visitor won't even know the difference. But that is a huge job. It's not so much huge money, but because we've let it go so long, like 120 years, and the Zama-Zamas have caused huge damage. You know, a mining company that's running can do the rehabilitation needed for probably less than 10 cents on the buck of what it's going to cost us to do it when that mine is closed. And if the mine is closed and totally destroyed, then we're going to pay even double again what it would have been. So these are the policies that should have been thought through when we were changing the Mining Act and changing the administration in the mid-1990s. And they now have to be thought through really well and fast to save this country.
Is there absolutely no way that the mining houses that left these mines and skipped could be brought in somehow to try and help with the rehabilitation process? I would imagine some of them still have operations in other parts of the country.
Definitely. There's lots of ways they can be brought in. And I would say most of the companies, the large 7 mining houses and the satellite companies they had under them, I won't say most, but many of them are still around in one form or another. And even if they've completely left South Africa, there's international laws to hold them to account. But we also have to look at the other side. Yes, you can hold people to account, but if you hog tie them with their hands and legs behind their back, and you put a patch over one of their eyes, and you say, we want you to rehabilitate this to a certain extent, but we're going to keep you tied up, and we're going to tell you who you use, how you do it, how long you have to do it. You know, this has to be negotiation, and it can't be negotiation with a gun to one side of the party's head. And, you know, if you want me to come clean up, I'll clean up, and I'll tell you what it's going to cost and what I'm going to need. But if I've got 3,000 legislative articles I got to follow, and I'm told who I can get to help me, who I can hire, how many of who I have to hire, then it makes it scary and unattractive. And I'll probably duck and dive, and I won't want to get involved because I think all the money's going to be wasted. But we've had good examples of companies that didn't cause the damage that have volunteered to work on the cleanup. If the government will help them get the regulations they need in line. In other words, can they get their license in a proper time? Can they have a fair amount deducted from their earnings each year for rehabilitation instead of the whole amount all at once? There's a lot that can be done. Like most things in life, it's sitting around a table and being fair to all parties and working towards a common good objective.
Peter Major, we're going to have to leave it there. Great talking to you. I hope it's not a long time before we do it again.
Okay, me too. See you soon, I hope.
So, yeah, absolutely.
At the Indaba.
Okay, thanks,
In
Peter.
Joburg, Indaba.
Thank you, Peter.